Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Karen Brownlee, and I am the Adult Program Coordinator with the North Suburban YMCA. And today I am pleased to bring you the second in a series of 4 meditation programs offered by Dr. Paul Nevin, The Power of Meditation, Part 2. Thanks for joining us. Dr. Nevin will be taking us through a quick 5-minute meditation, and then he will talk a little bit about meditation, and then you're going to take it through a longer meditation afterwards, correct?
I'll probably do a series of shorter ones today with descriptions between them.
Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. And we are recording this program today. I will ask that everyone please mute yourselves when you come on. I've got that written down in our chat box as well. So if you could please mute when you come on. And then at the end, Dr. Nevin will be taking questions, so you can then unmute after that. And Dr. Nevin, I will let you take it away. Thank you again today for doing this. And thank you all
so
for joining
much,
us.
Karen.
You bet.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, and welcome back if you're a repeater. I'm going to start today with a practice. This practice is very easy. You don't really need any instructions. It's just listening. It's music with a woman singing a Sanskrit word, which is Aum, A-U-M. All you have to do is listen to it. There's no other further instructions. But if you can, try to close your eyes at least a point on a or something like that so that your eyes aren't too active while you're doing it. Try to just relax, get your eyes closed or focused on something, and then just listen. This will be about 5 minutes.
Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
All right, welcome everybody. For those of you who are new, welcome. And for those of you who are returning, welcome back. If you're new, my name is Dr. Paul Nebben. I am a doctor of clinical psychology and also a Mayo Clinic trained and certified wellness coach. And I've also been teaching meditation for about 40 years. Our talk today is called The Power of Meditation. This is actually The Power of Meditation 2, the second in a 4-part series that we're doing on this subject. We've been teaching this program and variations on it at the Y for a couple of years now. So some of you may have been with us for a while. If you are new and you missed the first in the series, when Karen comes back, she'll give you some information about how you can access it on their website. There is a recording of it that they have, so if you want to catch up, you can, but you don't need it. Each one of these talks is intended to be a standalone module that you don't need the others to participate. Our talk last month, we do one of these about every month, around the first or second Tuesday of every month. We have 2 more coming up on November 10th and December 8th. The first one last month was more of an overview and introduction to the subject. We talked a little bit about what is meditation, why would someone want to take up a practice of meditation, what does science say about meditation, how does it help our health, our mental health, our ability to relax, our vitality, our productivity, our youthfulness, and a variety of other things. And then at the end last time, we did just a brief meditation. I think it was about 15 minutes at the end. Today and next month and the month after, we're going to focus a little less on explanations. There'll be some explanations today as we move from one practice to another. But our focus for today and for the next 2 in this series is a little more on trying some things out. So a little more on practice. The way we're going to organize it is we're going to take 1 or 2 things each session that you might say are types of meditation or ways of approaching meditation. I'm not talking now about meditation traditions like, for example, Buddhist, Taoist, or yogic, or whatever else, but more things that cut across different traditions. For example, one of the things we're going to talk about today is the breath. And you'll find that breathing and breath as a focus of meditation is a part of many different meditation traditions. And similarly, if we have time today, I don't know if we will, but if we have time, we'll also talk about using a word or phrase as a focus for meditation. Next month, I haven't completely written this in stone yet, but likely we'll talk about imagery and emotion as focus of meditation. And then in our final session, we'll talk about body-centered meditations, including some discussion of the Eastern idea of vital energy and how focusing on the body awakens what they consider to be a vital energy that you see in traditions like acupuncture and yoga and Ayurveda and various other traditions around the world. We may, if we have time at the very end, talk about openness meditation or meditating on space, openness, nothingness, we'll see how the time goes. Today, we're gonna mostly try to focus on the breath, and we're gonna do a handful of shorter meditations on different breathing techniques and ways that meditation is used, how breathing is used in meditation practices. I want to start by just talking a little bit about why the breath is important in a lot of different meditation traditions. It actually turns out there are a lot of different reasons. Probably the simplest one, but maybe the most profound, is it's just very convenient to have a focus for meditation that is always with you. No matter where you go, no matter who you are, you always have your breathing with you. If you choose to meditate on a candle, you got to bring a candle around with you. You meditate on your breathing is always with you, whether you're in a cave in the Himalayas or in the city, whether it's morning, noon, or night, whether you're at work or at home, you always have your breath. You can always just sit and meditate if you use that as your focus, as your tool. But also the breath has been seen in many of these traditions, and now even in our newer scientific Western view, you can talk about how the breath is intimately related to how our mind and body function. There's clear connections between breathing and things like your stress response, emotion, as well as connections between deep breathing and better health, youthfulness, and various other. It's very much connected to how your heart and mind and body function. So as you'll see it in different ways in different traditions. Some of the traditions use the breath just as a focus for meditation, the same way you would use, say, a candle flame or anything else as a focus for meditation. But oftentimes there's also what you might call a training of the breath. The idea that if you can learn to manipulate the breath in a certain way so that you, for example, breathe in a longer way, deeper, more rhythmically, things like this, that can impact the heart and mind and body in different ways. It's a little hard to show some of these things in a Zoom class, so I'm going to try to stick to things that are a little easier to show with me just in a little box here on your screen. But let's start by talking about just the simple focus on the breath, just using the breath as a focus of your meditation without trying to change it in any way, shape, or form. And for this, we're just going to do a maybe 2-minute or so breathing exercise. And what I want you to do is close your eyes or take a point in front of you and just stare at that point. Try to relax and stay in the present moment and just start to become aware of your breathing without judging it or trying to change it in any way. Just notice the breath coming in and out. Feel the physical sensation in the present moment of the breath coming out of your nostrils, of your lungs going in and out. Just focus on that sensation of breathing for a minute or two. If at any time your mind wanders and you find yourself thinking about something, judging yourself, wondering if you're doing this right, anything like that that's analytical, don't judge it, just bring your mind back to your breathing. When your mind wanders, you bring it back. You bring it back to practice, to the present moment, to the experience of what you're doing. Now we're going to move from just witnessing the breath without trying to change it to trying to change it in just a very gentle, general way. I want you to just feel like you're breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper and a little bit more rhythmically. Lengthen the inhale and the exhale. Feel like you fill your lungs a little than normal. And on the exhale, feel like you empty them a little more than you normally would. For now, try to make the inhale and the exhale roughly equal. Now this next practice I need to explain a little bit. If you like, you can keep your eyes closed and just listen and continue breathing while I explain. Or if you prefer, you can open your eyes for a minute and then return to your meditation after I explain the practice. What we're going to do now is called abdominal breathing, or some people would call this belly breathing. If you look at a little child breathing, if they're lying in bed, you see their belly going up and down. You see that they breathe more deeply into their body than most adults do. In China, they have an expression that when we're little, we breathe into our belly. In our adulthood, we breathe into our lungs, into our chest. And then as we get older, we breathe into our shoulders. And then finally, we run out of space to breathe and we die. There is a truth to this, which is that when we use our breath fully, what looks like breathing into our belly, obviously we don't have lungs in our belly. But what we do have is underneath our lungs, there is a muscle called the diaphragm that sits underneath the two lungs. And when you breathe very deeply, that muscle, if it's not too tense, goes downward, which causes the belly to go out. So if you put your hands right now on your stomach, around your navel, and just breathe in and see if you can feel yourself breathing more into your belly than you normally would. Some people have a great deal of difficulty with this. That usually shows that the diaphragm is kind of a little bit frozen over and tense. That means it might be a little uncomfortable to do this practice, but doing it a minute or two every day could help you to really increase your ability to breathe effectively. Some studies show that if you breathe abdominally or belly breathing and get more skilled at this, oftentimes that can increase your breathing double or triple. Most of us only use about 1/3 of the total capacity of our lungs. So I want you to start by just close your eyes again and feel with your hands on your belly, breathing a little bit more into your belly, and try to relax the area under your lungs so that your diaphragm can unfreeze and come down. A good way to practice this at first is as you go to bed, just put your hands on your belly and feel yourself breathing more so that your hands go up and down with your breath. For many people, it's easier to get in touch with this experience if they're lying on their back. For right now, just have an exploratory, playful attitude towards it. Don't worry about whether you're doing it right or not. Just try to be curious about how much your belly moves while you breathe. And we're going to move into a more full this in terms of 3 parts. Breathe in, you first breathe into your belly, then your chest, and then all the way up to open your shoulders a little bit. Then as you breathe out from your shoulders, breathe out from your chest, and breathe out from your, letting your navel. Repeat that a couple of times. Breathe into the belly, breathe into the chest, breathe way up the shoulder, breathe out of the shoulders. Try that 2 or 3 more cycles. All right, you can open your eyes. I'm going to talk for a little bit and show you another practice. Just briefly, let me mention there are several reasons why we do these kinds of exercises, even if it doesn't feel completely natural to you at first. There are many things like this, but in general, one of the purposes is to get more oxygen into our blood, not to the extreme to where you're hyperventilating, but if your blood is just more richly oxygenated, that helps to immunize you against stress in various ways. Or maybe the other way of saying it is if we're not breathing very well, if we're not oxygenating our breath as well as we could, we're a little more vulnerable to anxiety. There's studies that they've done over the years where they're trying to study anxiety and panic attacks in the field of psychology. One of the ways you create a panic attack in a laboratory is you put someone on a ventilator and just slightly turn down the amount of oxygen they get. Not so that they're in any way having trouble breathing, but just so their body notices a slightly thinner concentration of oxygen. That will tend to induce a panic attack. So a lot of times there's a question of how much of vulnerability to panic and anxiety is actually a biological thing that has to do with how well we're breathing. Certainly, at the very least, people who do these deep breathing practices over time often report better stress reduction that can be measured in terms of chemicals in the blood and various other things. So there is a physiological effect to doing these deeper breathing practices. Even if they feel a little bit not you at first, if you keep practicing with them and turn them into something that you feel comfortable with, often they can be very life-changing. This next practice is done more as a cleansing exercise. It's called alternate nostril breathing. And if you have your eyes closed, open them for a minute so I can show you the finger work here. Take your hand and put the 2 middle fingers down a little bit, or even 3 fingers like this. So you have your thumb and your little finger out. And what you're going to do is first you're going to block one side of your nose, the left side of your nose, and you're going to breathe in through the right. And then you're going to block both nostrils and hold it for a moment. And then you let go of the left finger and breathe out through that nostril. Then you're going to reverse it and go the other way. So you're breathing up through the right and out through the left, and then up through the left and out through the right, and you're alternating which nostril you're using. Scientists have found, and ancient yogis were aware, that we rotate which of our nostrils is more easy to breathe through during the day. It changes about every couple of hours or so. And that has something to do with the functioning of the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. And yogis would say it also has to do with the energy system in our body. This is basically a way of balancing the two sides of the nervous system, two sides of the brain, and regulating that so that it's not too extreme, that imbalance between the two sides. So I'm just going to do this a few times so you can experiment with it later if you want to. Again, you have your little finger and your thumb. You start with your little finger on the left nostril and you breathe in through the right. Then close the right nostril with the thumb and breathe out through the left nostril. Now breathe in through the left nostril. Switch the fingers again so that the little finger is on the left and the right is open, and breathe out through the right. Now I'll let you work the fingers. I'm just going to say breathe in through the right. Breathe out through the left. Breathe in through the left. Breathe out through the right. Breathe in through the right. Breathe out through the left. Breathe in through the left. Breathing out through the right. All right, I'm going to finish by talking about, there are a few different versions you will find in breathing exercises where they alter the timing of breathing in versus holding it versus breathing out. Think in terms of 4 parts to your breath. There's the inhale, then there's holding the breath, then there's the exhale, and then there's holding the breath out. Most of us don't really think about this, but often we may be shallow or one or all of these. Some people don't hold it at all, in or out. In yogic breathing, a lot of times there's an attempt to regulate these different parts. The simplest version is to just keep them equal, which we're going to do first. And then another version is to alter intentionally the count of the different parts here to create a certain effect. And one of the effects that has been verified in science is that if the exhale is longer and deeper than the inhale, that tends to activate the part of your nervous system that knows how to relax, what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. So for example, if you were, a simple version of this would be breathe in to a count of 4 and then breathe out to a count of 6. By extending the exhale, you're actually creating more of a relaxed state in your parasympathetic nervous system. We're going to do first an even breath where we breathe in to a count of 4, we hold it for a count of 4, we breathe out to a count of 4, and then we hold it out for a count of 4. And I'm going to do that for 3 or 4 rounds, all right? Begin by just breathing in to a count of 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Now hold it in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it out, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it out, 2, 3, 4. One more cycle. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold out. 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to do what's called a 4, 7, 8 breathing pattern, which is we inhale to 4, we hold it for 7, and then we have a long exhale to the count of 8. Then don't worry about holding it out. Just return to the inhale and we'll inhale again for 4. This has been shown in a lot of studies. I think Andrew Weil is well known for using this technique, and he does it with a lot of his meditation practices. In general, science doesn't care that much about the details, but in the scientific studies, it has been shown that if you extend the exhale compared to the inhale, it helps to activate the parasympathetic, which is called the rest and digest part of our system. So it will help with your digestion and your relaxation. It can often help with sleep if you have insomnia. Usually these practices are done for anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, and sometimes once or twice a day. But right now we're just going to do it for a few rounds so that you get a feel for it. So again, we're going to breathe into 4, hold it in for 7, breathe out to 8. And we're going to do that about 3 times, maybe 4 times. So get ready. Now inhaling, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 5, 6. Exhale. 6, 7, 8. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now just return to whatever is comfortable breathing for you. Don't worry about meditation. Just return to yourself. Open your eyes. About here in terms of the science of why these things work and what the different traditions. That day, the sessions were a little less and a little less on talking, but I will say there is evidence that these practices, the breath in general, can affect things. First of all, you breathe in a different way when you're stressed, and that stress response was designed to be for a battle and was only supposed to last for a little while and was supposed to be turned off by your instincts. Short version is that by doing some of these practices and regulating your breathing, you're almost fooling your body into letting go of a stress response. You're teaching your body that it can go back to normal breathing instead of breathing in a stress way, which is more shallow and more of a panting kind of breathing that can help you in a fight, but it's not necessarily good to do it long term. So one part of what happens with these breathing exercises is it breaks up the stress response and helps you to shift back to the parasympathetic rest and digest part of your nervous system. There are 2 parts of your nervous system. The first is the sympathetic, and it's sometimes called the fight or flight response part of your nervous system. The other part is called rest and digest. It's the parasympathetic. Breathing in general in a slower, longer, more rhythmic way, especially if the exhale is extended, helps you to shift back into the non-stress response part of your brain and body, into the parasympathetic system, into the parts of your brain that are more about play and creativity and learning and less about fighting enemies. The other thing is it does affect just how well you oxygenate your blood. It can also how your muscles tense and where you're frozen, your musculature. There are a lot of other things we could talk about. As I said, with the alternate nostril breathing, there are ways that they're trying to alter the function of the 2 sides of the nervous system as well as the 2 sides of the brain and body. There are a lot of things here. But suffice it to say, there's a lot of science saying that if you experiment with any of these techniques regularly, they can have a profound effect on you. If you were going to start with something, I would start with the more simple practice of just focusing on your breath without trying to change it. And if you want to take one step beyond that, I would focus on just having a little bit deeper and slower breathing pattern. If you want to, you can introduce a count to that. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4, or whatever feels comfortable to you. And from there are other things that you can explore if you want to, based on the things that we've touched on today. We have a little time left. I'm going to add one other kind of practice. It's actually the one we started with today. It's sometimes called, at least in psychology, it's sometimes referred to a focal word technique. And that's just a fancy way of saying that the thing you focus on with your meditation is a word or phrase that you're saying silently to yourself, or in some cases, a word or phrase that you're saying out loud. Again, I'm going to give you just a light introduction on the science side of this, but let me say this is a tradition that goes way back in a lot of different meditative traditions. You can find this in India and China and Tibet and a lot of different places. There's versions of this. But probably from a Western history point of view, it was most made popular somewhere around the 60s, early 70s, when the Beatles first went to India and some other rock bands of the time started to get interested in Eastern meditative practices. One of the things they were interested in was what's called mantra meditation, which mantra is more or less means a sacred word. And there are traditions in India over and over again. And in those days, there was some evidence showing that that had a lot of effects on things like stress chemistry in your blood and health and various other things. Well, along comes a fellow named a guy at Harvard Medical School named Herbert Benson, who decided to study this. I think originally he was trying to debunk it, but he found out there was a truth to it. But he also found out that you didn't need to use a special word like a mantra in Sanskrit or a special word from their tradition. If you took any word, including your name, a word like peace, a nonsense syllable, anything that you take and repeat it over and over again quietly and rhythmically to yourself, it has an effect of sort of stopping the talking part of your brain from going like this all the time and grasping all the time with words. That part of your brain just sort of like, almost the way when you live next to an expressway, eventually your mind sort of tunes it out. If you say a word over and over again, it sort of puts to sleep a part of your mind that is usually over-controlling, a more analytical, talking, restless part of our mind. And by repeating this over and over again, most practices that are studied in the labs, they do it for 15 or 20 minutes, once or twice a day. But even doing this for a few minutes while you're falling to sleep sometimes can help to calm down your mind. It essentially turns off or turns down the more grasping, analytical part of your mind that seems to have a mind of its own sometimes. So I want to end by just having you choose a word. If you want me to choose a word for you, I would say choose the word peace. But you can choose any word. You can choose a short phrase like all is well. You could choose the first line of a prayer you like. If you're religiously oriented, Hail Mary or Our Father or something that is short and sweet from a religious focus that you have. The idea, you don't want it to be long. It's probably not as effective if it was actually a prayer or a full poem or something like that. You want your mind to just be more like repetitive as opposed to engaging that part of your mind. So it should be short and sweet, but any word or full, maybe 3 to 5 words will work. Stay with the same one for this practice while you're doing it. And we're going to actually combine this with the breath. Many of these practices, I'm separating them for the purposes of teaching them, but often in practice, many of the things we're talking about today, next month, and the month after are actually brought together in combination practices. So you can have breathing and a focal word, or breathing and imagery, and so on and so on. Right now, we're going to include the breath with a focal word. Think the word to yourself, and then as you breathe out, think the word to yourself again. There's nothing more to it. That's all you have to do. As you breathe in, you think the word. As you breathe out, you think the word. And just stay in the present moment. Minimize judgment, thinking, analysis. Focus on the experience in the present moment. And just see how it feels to focus on this word. and your breath. Okay, close your eyes and begin. Breathe in and say your word. Breathe out and say it again. Continue that way for a few minutes. I'll tell you when we're done. All right, we're concluding the meditation. Let me just quickly recap. Breathing techniques today, talked a little bit about why breathing is used. Some of the things we used included what I would call experiential breathing, which is not trying to change anything, just staying in the present moment with however your breathing is. We talked about abdominal breathing or belly breathing to get a fuller breath. And then we talked about what's sometimes called the complete breath, which is including belly breathing and chest, giant breath, inhaling and exhaling. We then worked on the rhythm of the breath, focusing on the inhale, the hold, the exhale, and the hold out. And then we talked about how you can alter the response of your body by changing how long you count breathing in and breathing out. And the general idea that the out breath emphasizes relaxation and activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. We also talked a little bit about alternate nostril breathing, which is basically a way of balancing the two sides of the brain and the nervous systems. We finished with a different kind of meditation called a focal word meditation, where you take a word or a phrase and repeat it over and over again to yourself while breathing. I will add in conclusion before we opened up to some questions. Some people do the focal word. There's a few different versions of this in the East. Mantra meditation more or less means using a focal word, but they often think the word should be a sacred word from their tradition. You'll often, if you went to study mantra meditation in India, they might first talk to you, learn what you have difficulty and may or have particular religious connotations. Some mantras, like what we started with today, the word Aum, is sort of a general mantra that doesn't have a direct translation. But there are other mantras that have a particular meaning in a particular religious tradition. You might be told to say over and over to yourself, Om Namah Shivaya, or Om Aham, or something like that. As I said, the research shows that if those specifics help you, great, more power to you, but you don't really need that. You can repeat the letter A over and over again, and you'll get the physiological effects. At Harvard, they have described a variety of effects they call the relaxation response, change in blood pressure, heart rate, galvanic skin response, chemistry in your blood, a variety of other things. anything you repeat over and over again, including a nonsense syllable, will create that effect. Herbert Benson, Dr. Herbert Benson, who started the Mind Body Clinic at Harvard and did most of this work initially, came back years later and said, you know, in our later studies, we found that it actually does matter what the word is, in that it helps people to practice and helps them to have a more positive emotional feeling about it if they're saying something that has some meaning to them. So if it helps you to say the word peace or love or a prayer that's important to you or a phrase like all is well, go ahead and say that too, but it's not necessary for 90% of the physiological benefits. We've talked about two kinds of meditation in general. One is breathing and the other is a focal word meditation. Next time, I think probably we'll talk about imagery and then emotion, but I'm not going to write anything in stone yet. When Karen comes back, she will give you the information for how to contact me, my email, as well as my website that you can contact me through. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to shoot me an email and I will do my best to answer it. Also, if you have not been here for our first session last time, a month ago, I also have a handout that I often send to people and I can send it to you if you've seen it. If you're watching this on the website after the day of the talk, also you're welcome to contact me and I'll send you the information. We have upcoming talks on November 10th and December 8th. And then I think we're going to try into the new year to do an ongoing 3 to 6 month program of doing just general meditation, incorporating some of these techniques and maybe some other ones as we get going. With that, I will open it to questions. Karen, I'm going to leave this to you. I don't know how to see someone if they have a question. You would have to either unmute them or they have to unmute themselves.
Right. And
does anyone have any questions about our talk today?
yes, please feel free to unmute yourself. I can ask you to unmute, but I can't actually unmute you. So if you have a question, you can either unmute yourself and ask it, or you could write it in the chat box and ask it. Dr. Nevin, I really appreciate it. I was telling you that earlier that after last month's presentation, I actually started to get into meditation, and I have found that for me, it has brought a lot of good things, and I can't thank you enough. You've been doing this with us for a few years, and every other year I've sort of resisted, and I'm too busy, I can't do it, I'm blah, blah, blah. But I do encourage everyone, yeah, I encourage you to give it a try, because no matter how busy you are or how much you think you have going on, it can bring some positive things to your life. So I just wanted to say that it's not really a question, but it is a comment, and I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness to keep offering this and eventually chip through my armor.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions?
I enjoy it. I've learned I can't force anybody, but a lot of people, if they hear it enough times, they finally get interested. Are there any questions?
You
I
were
don't
so
see any.
thorough that no one has
Let me
questions.
add one thing before we finish. Questions, or again, you can contact me through my email. I'd be happy to try to answer it through email if need be, or next session. Let me add one other thing, which is one of the things I find the breath very useful for as a psychologist and a wellness coach, is there are a lot of people who either they don't feel like meditation is their cup of tea, or they just don't feel like they have the time, or they feel like at this point it would be too much work and it would be too much stress trying to deal with their stress, so they don't want to do it. For whatever reason, if the idea of doing a 10, 15, 20-minute practice on a daily basis feels like too much to you, one of the great advantages of meditation through breathing is the actual physiological effect of breathing is helping you. So it's always better to do a more substantial practice and do it consistently, but I've had many clients who get a lot out of just doing 3 deep breaths many times during the day. And what I would suggest to them is to set up some cue for yourself to remind yourself to do it during the day. It could be as simple as you notice you're getting tense. Before you get super tense, take time to do 3 deep breaths. Or you can have something that reminds you, like anytime you hang up the phone, or anytime you walk out of a meeting, if you do a lot of meetings at your work, or if you see a lot of clients, anytime you change rooms, or if you're walking in the hallway. Just try to integrate deep breathing a little bit more into your day. That kind of what I would call mini meditation or brief meditation is less researched, but I've seen a lot of people who most need it and can't seem to do a daily practice or find time for daily practice, that's a great way for them to get started. Another way to get started is to do it as you're falling asleep at night. And this is true of the focal word technique too. In my experience, bedtime, everyone, if you hit the pillow and you fall right asleep, this isn't going to work for you. But if you have any amount of time that you're lying in bed, just to do 3 to 10 deep breaths before you roll over and go to sleep can really help to normalize your nervous system and help you to have better sleep and better dreams. This is also true of the focal word technique. I find that technique, some people do that as their exclusive form of meditation. I've done most of these things for a period of time to test them out, just because as a teacher, I want to have experienced different things. But I don't usually, my form of meditation, I don't usually do focal word as a regular thing. Where I do find it very useful is when my mind has gone a little wild because there's something scaring me. If I have, my kid just went in for a medical test and I got to wait 3 days to find out if we're dealing with a really serious situation, and it's really hard to get yourself to calm down or whatever. To have a focal word that you just say peace or all is well or something over and over to yourself as you're going to sleep can really help to stop the anxious mind from bullying you, from just taking over and doing what it wants to do while you're scared. So those would be my 2 suggestions for our practices today. They're both useful tools. Either one can be your primary form of meditation in an ongoing way. There's a lot of things out there that you can use as tools, including YouTube videos. There are apps like the Calm app, the Headspace app, and others that will guide you through practices like this and others. There are meditation courses online that you can get more into detail with any particular meditation technique. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm available through email and would be happy to coach you a little privately if you have a question or two. With that, unless there's further questions, we will finish up. And Karen, if you could give them the email title thing that you've used before. I don't know if you have that handy.
Oh, the headliner. I don't have it handy.
Then let me just tell you, my name is Paul Nevin. My email is pnevin, P-N-E-V-I-N, @me.com. pnevin@me.com. You can contact me through that, and just as the title, put meditation class as the subject line, and I will try to get back to you if I see your emails.
And I was able to grab it real quickly.
On November 10th.
So here it is real quickly. That should
there we go.
Can you all see it? Yeah, my apologies. I didn't have it handy, but that doesn't mean I couldn't access. But while you said it, I was able to get to it. Let me see if I can just make it the whole screen. There you go.
And that's also my Heartlight website. That's the website for our business. If you have questions about this, or if you have any interest in either psychological services or wellness coaching services, you can contact me there. There's a contact page on the Heartlight PS that will send you to my email at pnevin@me.com. So it's really the same link.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thanks
Our next
again,
one
Dr.
is
Nevin.
November 10th, same time on a Tuesday at 11:15. And hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope we see you again.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Karen. Bye-bye.
Appreciate everything you do all the time. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.